Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked where I climb the Online Series 12 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. In the previous episode, we featured a really interesting team with Giratina Origin form. This is definitely one of the wildest teams I've tried in Series 12 so far. It's built by a Japanese player called Kotaru, and they qualified for the Japanese National Championships using this team in the February International Challenge. So, details are in the description below if you want to try out yourselves, and thanks so much as always for watching. If you enjoy, please show your support by leaving a like, I'd really appreciate it, and let's just jump right into things. Alright, we've got Ho and Zacian for the first one here. Ho's definitely been popping up a lot more recently, which I think is really interesting. Potential Dark Urshifu, I'm not sure which one that is going to be. Do I want to bring Bronzong into a Ho matchup? Probably not. I think Banded Landorus is going to be pretty strong for us here, so we'll probably want that. I think I like the idea of Dialga, Giratina, Landorus, Tornadus with this one. Just trying to figure out what to lead. Screens is annoying for sure. So if we can eliminate Grimmsnarl earlier than later, that'd be ideal. And I'm actually okay with the Tornadus Landorus lead here, I think, with Giratina and Dialga in the back, because Landorus actually applies a lot of good pressure immediately here with Banded Earthquake, especially if they lead like Zacian. We could also LEER into EQ, which is also a cool play, you know, to cover for them potentially going for like a Reflect. So I'm curious what my opponent leads with. It could be a Gastro lead as well, and then you could Dynamax, Max Hailstorm immediately, but then that's actually not that scary. Dialga has a couple of threats here, though. It's going to be Close Combat from Urshifu, Sacred Sword Close Combat from Zacian as well. And I think in this matchup, Thundurus doesn't make... Oh, I mean, Thundurus itself is actually pretty good against Ho-Oh, so that in itself is a reason to consider it, but I just really like maxing Dialga here. But I think, yeah, I actually could have considered bringing Thundurus a lot here. And then Bronzong, my opponent's restricted is Ho-Oh, and we don't know the Urshifu type, like if it's dark. Bronzong's just really weak into two of my opponent's main attackers, so it doesn't make too much sense. They're going to go with Grimm and Urshifu. Okay. I don't mind that too much. Interestingly enough, they're both dark types, and so I actually can't LEER against them because of the interaction between Prankster and dark type Pokemon. What I can go for... Turn one's interesting because Grimm obviously can pressure with Fake Out, so you could Fake Out like Wicked Blow into Tornadus. I almost don't mind a Protect here, I think. The other play is to actually just Icy Wind into Earthquake. I'm down for that. I guess the problem here is that they go Fake Out into Tornadus and Wicked Blow it. But I think if you're in my opponent's shoes, you also might anticipate Landorus Dynamaxing right now. So they go for Light Screen. Okay. Well, this might just be a double knockout if we don't miss Icy Wind on Urshifu. They're not going to expect Choice Band here. Light Screen's also fascinating, so they're obviously trying to cover. Also, that Icy Wind did so much in Urshifu even with Light Screen up. I'm shocked by that. It's not a crit either. Wow. Okay, well, let's see if Choice Band Earthquake actually gets the KO. Grimm might survive here. That's got to be a really bulky... Well, actually, no. I mean, Urshifu in itself isn't exactly the most frail Pokemon, but I am kind of surprised it survived that. Either way, though, this is fine. My opponent's going to have Zacian plus Ho-Oh in the back. I can set up a Tailwind for free here into an Earthquake. The only interesting consideration is whether or not I actually want to withdraw the Landorus right now to conserve Intimidate. So, for example, I could switch Lando out into Dialga. Or I can just take the double knockout that's in front of me. Either works. Yeah, honestly, I'm okay going for just Tailwind and Earthquake here. You know what's interesting? I can even Dynamax the Landorus here. I was kind of expecting the double up to knock out Urshifu, but I mean, Urshifu's defense is pretty solid. It's funny though, when the turn started, I was like, oh, maybe I'll get a double knockout here, but just overestimating Choice Band Landorus' damage a little bit here, mainly because it's been a very long time since I've used Banded Landorus. So, yep, we should just get a double knockout here. They will probably set up a Reflect before they go out, but yeah, I mean, getting a double knockout this early on is always nice. I still have my Dynamax. I can Icy Wind. I can LEER with Tornadus, which is actually really cool as well. Grimm survives, but I actually think that benefits me because it prevents a free switch in for my opponent. So I think you would go into Ho-Oh here, right? If you go into Ho-Oh, what's interesting is I can actually max this Landorus and then max Rockfall. Because the thing is, right now I have 3 potential max options in Giratina, Landorus, or the Dialga. Dialga was my initial plan going into this. Interesting, they actually bring out Zapdos. Whoa. Huh, so who do they drop? Okay, definitely did not expect to see that, but that's interesting. I still have 2 turns of Tailwind left. And I've got LEER here. So I don't mind going for LEER right now. I think that's a good play. I would think Zapdos maxes, and I would think they actually didn't bring Ho-Oh into this one. So then I would think they max Airstream. It could be Fake Tears Airstream, for example. But like, I'm actually intrigued by the idea of LEER, Max, and then Rockfall here, because that eliminates Grimmsnarl via Sand. You can't Thunder Wave my Landorus. And LEER drops Zapdos' defense, so even with though you have Reflect up, like Giratina and Dialga are in a pretty good spot. So that's part of the reason why this Landorus has some of its moves, right? Like, I mean, Stone Edge is already really strong even outside of Max, but it gives me Max Rockfall while maxing, and then Fly obviously gives me Max Airstream as well. Yeah, so they are going to max Zapdos. That makes me think Zacian should be their last one, because if you had Ho-Oh, I think you would just bring it out here immediately. I get the hesitance to not bring Zacian, because you obviously don't want to just feign to an Earthquake or a Max Quake. But the lead worked out really well for us, and I didn't expect to Max Landorus going into this one, but I like the idea of it here, because we get a lot of damage, and I have the speed advantage right now. Okay. So we will get LEER off. As I mentioned, Grimmsnarl is Dark type, so it does not affect that. Oh, I wonder what Grimm's going for here. They didn't go for a priority attack. Okay, works for me. And thanks to LEER, Max Rockfall is going to be a 2-hit KO. The other cool thing is I can actually just go for Phantom Force with Giratina. Okay, no policy, which is good. They do go for Airstream, probably into Landorus. Yep, that's fine. It's really good damage, though, which makes me think they're Life Orbed. Let's see. Probably just a spare break from the Grimm now. Yep, it is Life Orb. Okay. Throat Chop. Okay, that makes sense. So, Tornadus faints. Now I get a free switch in. I can go into either Dialga or Giratina. I obviously have Life Orb Ice Beam here at Dialga, but I don't know if it KOs with Light Screen being up. I still have 2 turns of Tailwind as well, right? So I am down to just going to Giratina here. Zacian should be their last one. I mean, if it's Ho-Oh, then this is definitely over because Landorus just wins. But there's Zacian. Yep. Okay, Zacian can definitely still pull off a comeback for my opponent here. They've got a speed boost. I've got Tailwind up. With the defense drop, I would think Poltergeist just KOs here, so I want to just go for Poltergeist and then a Max Quake here. I think I'm okay with that. Yep, Zacian protects. That's totally fine with me because it's free damage through the protect, and I get a special defense boost, which is nice on Giratina. I could have gone for Rockfall here, but it's a disaster, right, if they end up just max guarding with the Giratina, or sorry, with the Zapdos. The only downside here is I might miss Poltergeist, but Poltergeist with Sand and Life Orb should be a KO onto Zapdos. Okay, they are going to be faster, but we have a speed boost, or sorry, a special defense boost, and that actually allows Landorus to survive, which is also awesome. So it's part of the other reason why I went for this play, where it was like, even if even if you do outspeed, which you should Giratina, since Giratina doesn't really have much speed investment here. But now we get Poltergeist off, beautiful, and after Life Orb and the defense drop, yep, that's a KO, perfect. And I believe we have one more turn of Tailwind still as well, right? So their best bet is to go for a double protect right now. They're probably dual screens here. Yeah. I can't miss Shadow Force. So I think I'm fine just going for a Shadow Force here and a Max Quake. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Because I'm not going to outspeed with the Oh, they are just faster with Zacian. Because they got the speed boost, right? That makes sense. That's fine, though. Zacian definitely can't pull off this comeback. And I don't think I would have played that turn any differently, because I don't want to withdraw Landorus out into Dialga. Dialga's a better late game win con here. But yeah, should have considered the speed boost there, but either way, I wouldn't have played this any differently. Shadow Force is guaranteed to hit here, which is great. Take some sand damage, Tailwind peters out. And now we bring out Dialga. Now the downside is I can't protect with Dialga, so I'm nervous about a +1 Sacred Sword just one-shotting me. If you're close combat, though, you eat up a defense drop. Yep, they are indeed a Light Clay. Good to confirm that. And I'm just going to go for Earth Power here. No reason not to. I guess I could have considered switching out Landorus, but in that position, they could have considered going for a Fighting-type attack instead. But nice, we survived Sacred Sword. And this should be Earth Power. There we go. Beautiful. Into Blade, and that'll be a KO. So Giratina was really cool here, and we finally got some good value out of LEER in this game. That LEER made it so much easier to knock out Zapdos, even with the screens up. So, yeah. It's interesting my opponent didn't bring the Ho-Oh here, because I was actually most worried about that, but they probably just thought they couldn't do very much damage with it, and thought Zapdos would be a better max option. And that totally makes sense, right? I think part of it is they probably saw the Landorus in team preview, and they were like, well, I don't want to play against the Landorus, especially if it Dynamaxes and it can just knock out the Ho-Oh. So I think that logic makes a lot of sense. But this one was interesting because, you know, with this team, you mainly max Dialga. Thundurus is a good max option. Giratina can max as well, but we actually ended up Dynamaxing the Landorus out of all things, and that's because we were just in a good position to max it. So, yeah. Fun way to get things started, and goes to show even when you're using a choice user, you could still consider the possibility of maxing something. Normally it doesn't feel super ideal, but in this game it made a lot of sense because it pushed the tempo. Max Rockfall not only did a lot of damage to Zapdos, right, it's a 2-hit KO after the LEER, but it also set up the sand, meaning we were able to get a free knockout on a Grimmsnarl as well, which is always sweet. But I think what really gave us a big advantage in this one is my lead. Like, the Lando plus Tornadus lead was just extra strong, and I think they were probably leading in a way to beat Giratina with that combo, especially because they had Throat Chop as well. Like, you just have a lot of super effective damage on a Giratina. So that's my guess as to why they let Urshifu, but we kept Giratina in the back, and it was really nice for late game insurance. So yeah, let's keep things going. Alright, next one here, and we've got Zacian Kyogre, which is pretty classic, but there's actually a Heatran here, which is pretty interesting. Haven't seen that in a while. Landorus-T and Torn. So we both have Tailwind. I do have Icy Wind. The key thing to know with this team is that even with Tailwind, like, you're not exactly super fast. And they have Tailwind as well. So the problem is they can obviously just match Tailwind, but it's not like I have Trick Room as an option here. They don't have any Ghost Resist, so I'm actually thinking about Max Giratina, interestingly enough. Could be Max Thundurus as well, I think, but they actually don't have good damage in a Giratina. So I'm thinking we go Tornadus, Giratina, Landorus, and Dialga in the back. If we KO Kyogre, Landorus has a really good time in this matchup as well. Bronzong's too passive here in my opinion, and just gets wrecked by Kyogre before I can do much. And Thundurus here just doesn't provide too much either. Okay, so they're gonna go with Torn plus Ogre, which is actually kind of what I was hoping for. Oh, turn 1 is so interesting, because instead of going for Icy Wind, or sorry, instead of going for Tailwind, I can actually opt for Icy Wind or LEER. The problem is if they have Taunt on Tornadus, and then they win they just taunt me turn 2. I guess they could just taunt me turn 1, actually. So I think I'd rather just Tailwind here. I am actually really interested in the idea of Dynamaxing the Giratina here. Especially because Kyogre, in my opinion, is the biggest threat on their team to my Landorus. So if we eliminate Kyogre, it paves the way for Landorus, right? So, like, I can Tailwind, Max. I just wonder if they're... Normally, like, you're Choice Scarfed in a game like this, I feel like. Okay, I went for Tailwind Phantasm. I don't think Phantasm one-shots Ogre, though. They're not going to max Kyogre either. Which also is interesting, because then it's like, what are you Dynamaxing? It could actually be Dynamax Tornadus, right? Icy Wind into Tailwind could have been okay. The only reason I was hesitant in doing so is because I'm nervous about them having Taunt. But the thing is, I guess if they went for Taunt on the first turn rather than the second turn, it'd still be pretty rough. Okay, so they're just going to Tailwind. We'll match Tailwinds. That generally works in their favor. The upside is I have Icy Wind with Tornadus, so I can potentially slow them down in subsequent turns. Let's see. It's probably just a Water Spout, yeah. That's why I wanted to bring out this Giratina immediately. The cool thing is I can actually Leer into Shadow Force, or Max Phantasm the next turn. I'm just excited to have a game where I max Giratina. Oh my goodness, that was almost a one-hit KO. Okay. The fact we don't get a knockout there might actually benefit me. I don't know the item on it is the only thing. But here, like for example, I can actually just protect the Tornadus and then just Phantasm off the opposing Tornadus. The reason I'm okay keeping Kyogre around is because I have Shadow Sneak on this thing. If you're Choice Scarf, you're probably going to switch out. I guess the thing is I could punish a switch out with an Icy Wind here, but the idea of conserving Tornadus is if I can knock out their Tornadus, I can actually angle for a second Tailwind in this game. If we also eliminate their Tornadus, it makes it easier for me to just use Earthquake. Earthquake's really good against Kyogre, Zacian, Gieleki, and Heatran. So that's another angle we're looking for here. Either way, though, this one was interesting. I mean, if I went for Leer and Phantasm may have just been better, now that I think about it. Because it's not like setting up Tailwind accomplishes anything for me in this game, given that they're already faster than me. Okay, they're going to go for Hurricane and Origin Pulse. Okay, so you're not Scarfed, which is important information because it means Tornadus will outspeed you. And I suspect Zacian is going to come in this subsequent turn. We'll see if Tornadus is sashed here or not. If not, then we'll get a KO. If so, they'll survive, and they are sashed. That actually could be a beneficial thing for me, in my opinion. Although this next turn is interesting. Because I can obviously Icy Wind into Phantasm. Which is probably what I'm going to go for here. We both have 2 turns of Tailwind left. They seem to be willing to target Giratina, which was interesting. I could even consider switching Tornadus out here. But I think I'm okay just going for Icy Wind. Yeah. And just Phantasm Kyogre here. Sash isn't super surprising, it's a decently common item, and we win a potential speed tie here, so that'll drop Kyogre speed, and we'll get a double KO. So what's interesting is I've gone up pretty quickly in terms of Pokemon in both matches, but this time around I don't have a Dynamax to use. They're going to have Zacian in the back. The main question is what their final Mon is going to be. What's interesting though is now I can get a second Tailwind up in this match, and that's a really big deal. I also have Banded Landorus, which will just one-shot Zacian. And I've got Leer on the Tornadus as well. So today was interesting because we ended up making some very kind of unconventional maxes. Dialga is by far the most common max option with this team in my opinion, but that's the cool thing about it. You have so much flexibility with the rest of your options. Okay, it's going to be Landorus plus Zacian, so that's not surprising. I guess that also poses a problem because it means like Landorus can just max Airstream here. I can obviously bring in my Landorus right now for an Intimidate, and that's what I want to angle for. For example, Giratina into Landorus and Tailwind here is acceptable. I've got Leer, so I'm also thinking how we can maybe utilize that. The problem with switching in Landorus is I take a lot of damage on the switch in. So I don't love that idea. So the last turn of Tailwind here. So I also switched Tornadus out to get a second Tailwind up, but I don't know if it's worth taking a lot of damage on either of these Mons to do that. Yeah, I don't mind going for Leer here and then switching out in... the problem is I might just get outsped and knocked out by everything if I go for this, right? That's what I'm nervous about right now. Maybe it's worth trying to protect here. This is an interesting example where it's like, even though I'm up 4-2, I think my opponent's positioning is actually not too bad. I'm switching in Landorus for an Intimidate here, but it may have made more sense to actually just give up the Giratina, or just Shadow Sneak on the way out, to get a free switch in into Banded Landorus next to Dialga. Oh, interesting. They didn't go for a max this turn. So if they didn't max Airstream here, it's like I could have switched Torn out into Landorus and then got in it. It's probably a Swords Dance, right? Okay, play rough into Lando. I mean, if you're Swords Dancing, though... Okay, no, they just go for Rock Slide. That makes sense. Although it means I could have protected Tornadus to get another Tailwind up. Yeah. Tailwind peters out on both ends. This is the other thing. I could have staggered my Tailwind. So now I can bring out Dialga. You're intimidated. You're also weird. And with Dialga out, now this is interesting. If you're my opponent, you could just max Quake Dialga and play rough Landorus. Or Behemoth Blade Landorus. Max Quake. So I could switch out into Giratina to take a Quake. The decision to not max last turn was really smart, and I am going to get punished pretty heavily for it. Okay. I'm going for the KO here onto Zacian this turn, but I don't think that really works out too well. What I could have ended up doing was switching out Tornadus, but if I were my opponent's shoes, I would have just max Airstreamed. I guess it's not like Rock Slide got them any much more than had they just maxed and Airstreamed into Tornadus, other than one extra turn of Dynamax. But I guess I could have punished what was maybe a slightly suboptimal play to get a second Tailwind up. Let's see. Okay, they're on for Sacred Sword. Yep. Is it max Airstream or Quake here? It's going to be Airstream. Okay. So then now my question is, does Life Orb Earth Power KO the Zacian? Because if so, it'll be a 2v1. And I have this Giratina as well, which can protect into Phantom Force. Even if we don't KO, I suppose I have Shadow Sneak. The good thing there is, yeah, like they didn't Quake, meaning they don't get a special defense boost, which is valuable for me here. Yeah, it's not a KO on a Zacian. Okay. Rain stops. I can obviously Shadow Sneak to KO the Zacian. They can just Max Quake me, and then it'll be a 1v1. So then it's the question of whether or not, like, Rock Fall would KO Giratina. I wouldn't think so with the Intimidate. So here my play is pretty clear-cut. I'm just going to Ice Beam Landorus, and I haven't revealed Shadow Sneak, so I'd be surprised if they end up protecting Zacian here. Actually, I guess it's not a bad play to protect Zacian. Like, you protect Zacian and just Quake into Dialga. That's always pretty safe, actually. So if they go for that, actually, they probably will win the game. I think in this game, I didn't need a Tailwind turn 1, because my idea was, like, oh, I'll match their Tailwind, but I don't need to, because I'm already slower than them. So, like, I was worried about getting taunted earlier on, but it's like, why do I have to worry about that? It's not like it actually contributes anything to the battle. We will get the Shadow Sneak off, though, so that'll KO Zacian. Cool, now it's a 1v1 against Landorus. They can't boost their defense. They're at -1 defense. What? I guess they just don't know about Levitate. I mean, that just instantly wins us the game. I don't see any reason why you would Quake into that slot there, like ever. Now Shadow Sneak actually just KOs. I was actually pretty confident we'd win the 1v1 Giratina into Landorus because they're at -1 and we have Shadow Force and Shadow Sneak. But yeah, I think they probably just forgot about Levitate, honestly. That's my best explanation. So, not how I expected this game to play out, but honestly it was pretty scary because they definitely had the potential to bring a comeback, and I think I didn't play this perfectly. Because I just, like, yeah, setting up Tailwind was not very useful for me. And we had a good lead, but I also have to question, like, with that lead, could I have played it any better? Like, for example, given up the Giratina to get the free switch in into Landorus and Dialga. My problem with that is then you can just double up into either slot and just get a knockout instantly. So I'd rather, you know, like, at least have 3 Pokemon as options. But, yeah. Would have been interesting to see how that would have played out if they did end up Quaking into Dialga. Would have been a 1v1. They would have had one more turn of max left. But with Giratina, then I could actually... Yeah, actually, if you only have one more turn of max left, I could just protect the Giratina, right? Protect Giratina, stall out your max, and then just Phantom Force. Yeah, so then your win con is a crit there. But with the Intimidate and the defense drop, I think Giratina could have handled that endgame by itself, but we didn't have to play around a crit since they ended up Quaking into Giratina. So we'll take it. Either way, though, let's look for one last one. Final one here, and we've got a Reshiram team. Okay. Pretty standard support next to it. Thundurus, Incineroar, Rillaboom, Urshifu, Zacian. Reshiram's interesting. You can run Life Orb, AV, Policy, just to name a couple of items. Urshifu typing here is a big question mark. I would think it's Dark. Mainly because, like, if you're Water, it's kind of counteracts when you have max, like, if you max Reshiram and max Flare, but not 100% sure on that. Okay, we can't bring Bronzong here. I haven't brought Thundurus out at all while using this team. It's not bad here given the Rillaboom, Urshifu, and Incineroar from their end, but then it's like I'm committing my Dynamax to this, and I'd rather max Dialga, I think. I think I'm going to go with Torn, Lando, Dialga, Giratina again. They do have Fake Out with Rillaboom and Incin, but I've got Protect, so okay. Tornadus. I'm honestly intrigued by Tornadus, Dialga, Giratina plus Landorus. I don't think Thundurus is a bad bring here, but I feel like if there's one thing I didn't do very well while using this team between the last episode and this one, it was figuring out when to actually bring Thundurus, because, like, you know, against Kyogre, in that last matchup, for example, that definitely could have been but both Game 1 and Game 2 today, actually, I think Dynamax Thundurus would have made a lot of sense, but we had brought Thundurus and we didn't get the fun max options in Landorus and Giratina, so it was cool to see those, obviously. But let's see. It's going to be Reshiram and Zacian, okay. Man, it would have been so sick to have just let Tornadus plus Landorus here. I mean, this isn't bad, though, right? Like, what's stopping me from just Tailwind max... The question, I guess, is whether or not I want to max Quake or Wormwind turn 1. I mean, nothing on their team takes a max Wormwind. Your only resistance is Zacian, which is already out on the field. The only fear here is their AB Reshiram bulky enough to survive, and then a double up KOs the Dialga. But the thing is, I also drop your Zacian's attack, so I would be surprised if it actually KO'd. The alternative is to Tailwind and then Quake into Zacian, but they could switch Zacian out into Rillaboom or Thundurus here. So I'd rather Tailwind max than just Wormwind into Reshiram. We'll see if they're Assault Vested or not, and whether or not they stay in. The reason I'm going for this is because there's nothing that can switch into a Wormwind, whereas there are a lot of options that can switch into Max Quake. They are going to Dynamax, which is fine. Although, if I eliminate Zacian early on in this game, where does that get us? Because the idea of targeting Zacian is tempting, right? If I Max Quake into it, get a one-hit KO, Reshiram is most likely going to be special, and you're not going to do that much damage to either of us. But what I was thinking is, well, even if you don't protect the Zacian, I get a, even if you attack, like, I'll at least get an attack drop. So then the question is whether or not Dialga's tanky enough to live like a Sacred Sword, plus a Max Quake from Reshiram. I guess worst case is their weakness policy and they actually survive a Light 4 base 150 Max Whirlwind. Which could be the case, actually. I feel like Reshiram's bulky enough to take that naturally, but I'm not sure. Max Guard. Cool play. I think this is my opponent recognizing that the lead is really awkward for them, and that's a really smart play because it prevents me from also dropping their attack. I really like that play on their end. That's neat. It's going to be Sacred Sword. Ooh, it's not that much damage, though. Like, what's key here is another one isn't even going to KO us. So I'm content to just Icy Wind into Wormwind here. Great play turn 1, though. It's I think it's pretty rare to see a defensive max like that, but it makes a ton of sense in the context of this battle. However, that means we know that Reshiram is not Assault Vested. This also meant that if I just Quaked Zacian turn 1, we most likely would have just immediately won the game, but, like, it's fine. Like I said, Zacian there has switch-ins into Thundurus and Rillaboom. It's a disaster if I Quake and they switch into Thundurus while Reshiram maxes. The odds of that, I feel like, are pretty unlikely, but still. Oh my gosh, Dialga, you're just the beast. Okay, nice. Today's episode was really fun. We ended up maxing 3 completely different Pokemon and playing... I mean, Tornadus was integral to all 3, right? The general idea was get speed control, but in Game 2, I think I didn't play optimally because I didn't need Tailwind, since my opponent was going to be faster anyway. Okay, they're going to go Behemoth Blade here. That's fine. Yeah, this was one in which, like, if you look at my opponent's team, I think their team relies very heavily on maxing Reshiram almost every game. Because, like, Rillaboom, Incin, Urshifu, they're all potential max options, but those are all, like, very secondary. Like, you don't want to prioritize maxing any of those unless you really have to, right? Okay, so Urshifu comes out. I've still got 2 turns of Tailwind left. I can obviously Quake into Zacian here. You would think Zacian protects. They don't have a Dynamax left anymore. I mean, I'm down to just Icy Wind here. And Wormwind into Urshifu. That works for me. Yep, Zacian protects. Maybe Urshifu goes for Sucker Punch. Maybe it just goes for Protect. Okay, it will Sucker Punch. That's fine. Because the thing is, now I get Giratina out, right? And with Giratina, I can just go for Shadow Sneak. If you're not Focus Sashed. Or sorry, if you are Focus Sashed. Most of the time you are. Yeah. I mean, I could have switched Tornadus out there to angle for a second Tailwind, but the thing is, if they don't go for Sucker Punch and they close combat and we get the KO there, we also kind of just win immediately. Like, I'm just pushing the tempo right now. Actually, would I rather go into Landorus or Giratina here? If I bring out Lando, they're certainly going to switch out the Zacian, right? But I can punish anything switching in. Yeah, you don't have anything that can safely switch in. Because Dialga can just Roar of Time that slot in cover for Rillaboom, Incin, or Thundurus, right? And I guess the only question is whether or not I'd actually want to commit a Roar of Time here. Because then I can't do anything with Dialga the subsequent turn. Urshifu should definitely protect here. EQ... Thundurus being the last one is the least of my worries. I don't think that's super scary. I still have one turn of Tailwind left. I guess you could go for a double on Zacian, but I would think Zacian wants to switch out right now. It's at -2. It's not having a good time. You know, I guess I could also EQ and then just switch the Dialga out in a Giratina. I'm not totally opposed to that idea. Guess it just comes down to what their last one is, but you know what? I think I'm fine just going for EQ and Ice Beam here. I don't want to Roar of Time because I can miss that, and Ice Beam is okay because, like, if it's Rilla or Thundurus, Ice Beam is super effective against both. It's going to be Incin, but that's fine. EQ is obviously effective here. Yeah, the only problem is now I don't have speed control, and their Zacian is going to be at max attack again, which is scary. Dialga Switcher actually would have been really good, because then I can just Shadow Sneak into Urshifu. Maybe Bandit EQ into Ice Beam KOs anyway. We'll see. Oh, it's Shuka. I actually think this is one of those scenarios where Shuka might work for us rather than against us, which is interesting. I could have gone for Roar of Time there to get a guaranteed KO onto anything coming in, but I actually like the idea of not getting a guaranteed knockout there. Okay, so now if you're my opponent, you can fake out into Wicked Blow, right? I want to conserve Landorus. You could just fake out Landorus, Wicked Blow, Dialga. So I'm down to switch out into Giratina here. And then I don't think I get an attack off here with Dialga, but honestly, my opponents played this really well. I feel like I had a really good team advantage, and they made really good plays to get around it. Like, that turn 1 play, for example, if I just Quake Zacian, we probably just win immediately. But they recognized the situation that they were in, right? So here's Wicked Blow. Okay, the cool thing is now I have Shadow Sneak. So I can just sneak into EQ. The problem is you should probably protect Urshifu this next turn, right? Huh. So I wonder if I actually don't want to reveal Shadow Sneak here. Actually, what difference does it make? You protect here, you bring out Zacian next turn. I would think +1 Behemoth Blade KOs without the Intimidate going off. But, yep, I'm just going to sneak and EQ. I think I played Zuko. I don't know if I really needed to worry about a Thundurus in the back in this game on turn 1. Max Guard was really brilliant, though. Yeah, so Urshifu protects. So we'll get a KO onto Incin. And then I can obviously sneak Urshifu this next turn for a KO, but they're going to Sucker Punch me on the way out. This is where the Zacian EV spread I'm curious about. I assume you'll one-shot Landorus with the Behemoth Blade, but if you're like really bulky, you don't have much attack investment, maybe Landorus can survive. You could just be a double up into that slot as well, right? The other thing is, I don't know if you know this team's items. I would still target the Landorus always, I think. But this goes to show just how valuable switching can be, right? It's like Zacian went from being relatively useless, it was at -2, not really able to put on too much pressure damage-wise, to now being in a really solid position. So this is one in which I actually think I had a very significant matchup advantage, and my opponent played very well to get out of it. Part of it was not getting this like second potential Tailwind up. Okay, so they're going to target Landorus. It's going to be a double up onto that slot, which makes sense, I presume. Which means if I had Protect here, it would have been nice, but I obviously don't. So it should be Behemoth Blade. Yep. I think you've got to be targeting Landorus here. You know that's the main threat. Yep. Should be a KO, right? Okay. If they have Play Rough here, +1 Play Rough might just one-shot me. So we'll see. My play is to Phantom Force and a Shadow Sneak. Or Shadow Force, not Phantom Force. So let's see what item, or sorry, do you have Play Rough or not? They do. Does it one-shot us? Ha, it does. Okay. Yeah, they conserved their Zacian very nicely in this game, and this was one, and I think it's a very good example of how you can play out of a really bad matchup. My opponent did not have a good matchup. They found a really good max guard play on turn 1. That max guard play alone makes a big difference, right? Because it's like if you protect there, your Zacian eats up the special defense drop. I think what I did poorly today is I had opportunities to conserve Tornadus in both Game 2 and Game 3, like switch it out, conserve it, and then bring it back in to set up another Tailwind. But I didn't do that in either games. And both times, like, there wasn't really too much to lose by making a switch like that. So, because I think if I have a second Tailwind up in this game, Landorus in itself just wins by going for Bandit EQ. So, I think I had pretty bad awareness, like, where I had, decent positioning, but then, like, I'd run out of steam because then my Tailwind expire, and then I can't really protect with most of these Pokemon, so then my opponent can just outspeed and KO me. Yeah, and, like, play rough on Zacian, a move that you should assume. Zacian is just one of those Pokemon you want to assume it has like sub play rough swords dance until you see otherwise. It's only often going to have one of the 3, but they're all really good options, and so you ideally want to play around all 3 until you can have confidence that they're not running any of them. But yeah, this is one in which like I just got to give props to my opponent because I think I had a very good advantage in terms of matchup, and it's a great example to show how even if you have a good matchup, you still have to play well. And from the converse side, if you have a bad matchup, you can still win if you find really crazy plays, right? And like the max guard play in itself was really strong in turn 1. This is one though I feel like like we shouldn't really lose if I just switch out Tornadus and get a second Tailwind up. The problem is I didn't know what my opponent's last one was going to be, whether it be Rillaboom or Thundurus, but I think Incin makes the most sense because it's also by far just the best mon into Giratina, which otherwise like they might struggle with if you don't have Zacian. Well, actually, never mind. You have Reshiram in that one as well. But this one was interesting because there are a lot of opportunities where like we can actually win the game immediately on just one turn. And turn 1 was an example of that, but I didn't like push the tempo super aggressively, and they found some really good plays as well. So kudos to them because this is one in which I think like we win the majority of the time if I based off the matchup. But they just outplayed me, like plain and simple here. And it's always cool to see how you can get your way out of what I think is a really tricky matchup. So yeah, but like I said, the mistake in this one was just not getting a second Tailwind up and conserving Tornadus for a turn, because there's no way for them to deny me a second Tailwind. So switching Torn out, going out into Landorus or Giratina immediately, and then pressuring with the second Tailwind should just allow us to win the game. So that's what I would say my main mistake was in this one, not switching Torn out that turn, and that cost me really heavily. But that's going to be it for this one. So thank you so much to Kotaro once again for the team. Thanks to you all as always for watching. And yeah, leave a like if you enjoy. Don't forget to answer the question of the day, and I'll see you all soon. All right, peace.